She came home with glitter on her collarbone. Not the kind you find at a party. No, it was deliberate, like it had been dabbed on with intention, to shimmer when she leaned in close to someone. Someone who wasn't me. The silence that followed her into the apartment was louder than anything she'd ever said. She didn't greet me, just tossed her purse on the kitchen counter, kicked off her heels, and opened the fridge like I wasn't standing there, like I hadn't spent the last 2 hours staring at her location blinking on the bar map. Anything happened tonight? I asked, too calmly. She blinked, slowly. No, just drinks. I stared at the condensation building on her wine glass. She was pouring herself the good one, the bottle we only opened for anniversaries. Was this one of them now? A secret celebration? I asked you not to meet him, I said. She sipped. You also asked me not to dye my hair last year. Remember how that turned out? I should have walked out. Instead, I watched her walk past me like I was a lamp, a decorative object she was tired of dusting. But I wasn't surprised. No, her betrayal didn't arrive like a storm. It came like mold, slow, hidden, just beneath the wallpaper of our marriage. She thought I'd cry, maybe shout, maybe follow her around the apartment begging her to explain what I already knew. But I just nodded. Then I picked up my phone and typed exactly 4 words. It's time. Do it. Her betrayal had already bloomed. What she didn't know was, I'd been watering a garden of my own. She kept talking about nothing, about drinks, about a funny story Wes told, oblivious to what I'd just triggered. Because while she was out with him, laughing over whiskey sours and touching her neck too often, I was busy. Busy unlocking a folder I'd kept hidden. Busy forwarding an email chain to someone who had been waiting for my permission to press send. Busy executing a plan I never thought I'd need. She picked glitter. I picked consequences. And the first one would knock at our door in exactly 9 hours. With a briefcase. And a badge. I didn't sleep. I didn't need to. She came to bed at 1:38 a.m. Smelling like someone else's cologne. Not strong, not obvious, but just enough to insult my intelligence. She slid under the sheets like nothing had shifted in the earth beneath us. Like her decision to ignore me the night before hadn't started a countdown. But I didn't react. Not when she laid with her back to me. Not when she exhaled that satisfied, slow breath people only do after getting something forbidden. I just stared at the ceiling. There's something oddly empowering about silence, the kind that isn't passive but weaponized. While she slept, I rehearsed everything. Not because I had to, but because it was finally happening. The last 3 months of quietly collecting pieces were about to fit together. And she had no idea that while she was playing games, I was drafting endgame. At 10:03 a.m., the knock came. She was brushing her teeth, humming. She had no idea what that knock meant. To her, it was probably just a package or the neighbor. To me, it was checkmate. Can you get that? She called, mouthful of toothpaste. I opened the door. Daryl Weathers? The man asked. His suit was too clean for a regular courier, and his briefcase was already unlocked in his hand. Yes, I said. My voice was too calm, even for me. I'm here on behalf of Polaris Holdings. You requested a compliance audit and submitted the supporting documents. We've completed the preliminary review. Is your wife available? Meredith stepped out of the bathroom with a towel in her hand and confusion painted across her face. Polaris what? She looked at the man, then at me. What's going on? This is Mr. Atkins, I said, folding my arms. He's here to go over the financial discrepancies in the joint business account. The one you've been siphoning money from under a fake vendor name. Her face dropped like I'd slapped her. What? He clicked open the briefcase and pulled out copies. Mrs. Weathers, your signature appears on 4 authorizations linked to Cloud Halo Media. You claimed it was a consulting agency. Mr. Weathers cross-referenced the tax ID. It belongs to Weston Langston. Does that name ring a bell? Dead silence. Then, you've got to be kidding me. But I wasn't. You see, Meredith didn't just cheat emotionally. She funded her little affair with company money, the business we co-owned. And she thought I was too passive to notice. But I'd been watching every transaction. I just didn't tell her. Not until it could hurt. She grabbed the papers from Mr. Atkins, scanned them, and backed into the kitchen like the counter might save her. Her voice cracked when she finally spoke. You set me up? I walked over, leaned on the counter, and looked her in the eyes. Really looked this time. No, I said. You did that all by yourself. I just made sure you couldn't lie about it. She opened her mouth to fight, to defend. to say something clever like she always did. But nothing came out. And for once, I didn't fill the silence for her. She stood frozen, gripping those papers like they might catch fire in her hands. Her lipstick was uneven, her hair still wet from the shower, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't look like the woman who always had a backup plan. She looked small, shaken, and that made me feel something I hadn't in months: control. The kind she'd quietly stolen from me piece by piece with her smirks, her "you're overreacting," and her late nights that smelled like someone else's brand of soap. She tried to regain her composure. "This is a misunderstanding," she told Mr. Atkins, her voice low, forced calm, the same tone she used when she talked clients out of bad deals. "My husband doesn't understand how the business works. There must be a mistake." Mr. Atkins didn't flinch. "Mrs. Weathers, your husband didn't submit this alone. He included copies of every outgoing invoice, communication logs, and a notarized bank statement showing a private transfer into your personal account, dated 2 weeks ago." Her shoulders stiffened. Her eyes darted to me, sharp and hateful, like I'd just betrayed her. The irony almost made me laugh. "You've been going through my accounts?" she hissed. "I went through our accounts," I said. "You're the one who made them yours." Mr. Atkins closed his briefcase with a click that echoed like a final gavel. "Polaris will proceed with their internal review. Given the evidence, I recommend retaining independent counsel immediately." He handed me a card, nodded politely, and left the apartment with the kind of professionalism that made the whole scene feel 10 times more real. When the door shut, she finally snapped. "You humiliated me," she shouted, throwing the papers across the counter. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "Stop pretending." She let out a bitter laugh, half a choke, half disbelief. "You think this is justice? You think this makes you a man again?" Her words hit like stones, but I didn't move. "No," I said. "This just makes me awake." She started pacing, muttering, calling me paranoid, manipulative, vengeful, every word she could reach for. But when her phone buzzed on the counter, everything shifted. Her screen lit up with a name she'd been careful to hide under a fake contact label, WL. I picked it up before she could. She lunged for it, but I was faster. I held it out of her reach and pressed the power button to wake the screen. A preview of the newest message popped up. Just 6 words. "She knows. We're done. Lay low." Her face drained of color. She froze mid-step, staring at me like I'd just pulled the world out from under her. "Give me the phone," she whispered. I didn't. I just stared at it, reading that text again and again, the words burning into me like acid. It wasn't just guilt. It was fear. Someone else, maybe that idiot Wes, had realized the walls were closing in. And now she was scared, not for me, not for us, but for herself. When I finally spoke, my voice was steady, almost detached. "Lay low, huh? Sounds like he's got experience with this." She didn't answer. She just stood there, trembling. Her hands, her perfect little manicure, clutching air like she could still control the narrative. But I'd taken that from her, and she knew it. I turned and walked away. For once, she followed. "Where are you going?" she demanded. "Out," I said, reaching for my jacket. "You can spend the afternoon explaining to your boyfriend how I got your emails, your fake receipts, and his name on company property." "You wouldn't dare," she whispered. I stopped at the door, looked back, and gave her the kind of tired smile that comes from years of swallowing pride. "You dared first." The door clicked behind me. Her muffled sob followed. But what she didn't know was that the world outside was already moving. The story she thought she could hide was about to become public. I wasn't the only one who had been watching her. And the next person to knock wouldn't be from a company. It would be from someone she'd never thought would turn against her. I didn't go far. Just sat in my car across the street, watching the front of our apartment like it was a crime scene waiting for the yellow tape. I had no idea what she was doing inside. Screaming into a pillow, calling her little boyfriend, maybe even trying to delete evidence. But none of it mattered anymore. It was all already backed up. All of it. Multiple drives, cloud folders, even a sealed envelope in a storage unit an hour out of town with printed copies. She could erase her phone, torch her laptop, smash her tablet. Wouldn't make a dent. I had built redundancy into my revenge. Half an hour passed. Then a dark silver Lexus pulled up. I didn't recognize the man at first. He got out, tall, confident, dressed in one of those too tight, too clean button-downs that screamed, I network for a living. He walked to the door with the kind of entitlement that made my stomach turn. Didn't buzz. Didn't text. Just knocked 3 times like he owned the place. She opened immediately and let him in without looking over her shoulder. That's when I knew. This wasn't new. This was routine. I stayed in the car, gripping the steering wheel like it could stop me from shattering my own windows. I'd suspected the affair, sure. But something about seeing him, this smug, polished, cologne-soaked piece of work walking into my home without hesitation, made it real. Not just a betrayal. A replacement. I should have driven off. But something told me this day still had teeth. 15 minutes later, they were both back outside. But something was wrong. They weren't arm in arm. There was no kiss goodbye, no sneaky glance. They were arguing. Heatedly. Her hands were flying, his jaw tight, pacing like someone trapped in a corner. I rolled my window down an inch and could only catch parts of it. You told me this was handled. I didn't think he'd go that far, Wes. He sent a file to my office. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. You dragged my company into this. Do you know what that means? Her response was quieter. I couldn't hear it. But he didn't take it well. He pointed at her, then toward the building. Then he stepped back, disgusted, and left. Just like that. No hug. No goodbye. Just rage and retreat. She stood there frozen. Alone. No allies left. And in that moment, I swear I saw the exact second her world collapsed. You'd think I would feel victorious. Powerful. But all I felt was emptiness. Because the truth was, I didn't win anything. I just finally watched her lose. Still, I wasn't done. She didn't know I had also contacted someone else that morning. Someone who had been asking questions for months. Someone she used to keep quiet with gifts and charm and late-night promises. Her sister. They hadn't spoken in a while. Not after the last argument about money. Meredith had written her off, claimed she was jealous of our life. What she didn't know was that her sister never believed her. Not fully. And when I reached out, I didn't ask her to pick sides. I just showed her the truth. Screenshots. Transfers. The affair. The invoices. The false consulting contracts. She texted back only once. I'm coming over. And right as Meredith walked back into the building, pale and furious and alone, another car pulled up behind mine. She stepped out, tall, denim jacket, no makeup, eyes sharp. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She just walked past my car without a word, straight toward the door Meredith had just closed behind her. Round 2 was about to begin. And this one would be personal. I didn't follow her sister up to the apartment. I didn't have to. There are some storms you don't chase. You just step back and let them rip the roof off. Through the car window, I watched the hallway lights flicker as she disappeared inside. I waited, listening to nothing and everything. And then, faintly, yelling. At first muffled, then sharper. 2 women's voices, no mistaking them. But not just bickering. This was something uglier. Shouting like years of silence were finally breaking all at once. It was rage served cold. 15 minutes passed. Then 30. I finally went up. The moment I opened the door, the heat inside hit me like a furnace. Not physical heat, but emotional combustion. Meredith was standing near the kitchen counter, arms crossed, face red, mascara barely clinging to her lashes. Across from her stood her sister, Marla, holding a folder. One of my folders. Oh no. You didn't tell me you gave her everything. Meredith snapped at me. I ignored her and looked at Marla, who didn't even blink. Her hands were shaking, but her eyes were locked, unwavering. How long has this been going on? She asked. 3 months officially, I said. But based on the financial trail? Closer to 9. Marla looked back at her sister. 9 months, Meredith. 9. You were stealing from your husband and your company while cheating with a man who... She stopped herself and shook her head. You lied to everyone. You told Mom you were planning a baby. Meredith winced. Oh, so that was the lie. A baby? I didn't even know she had said that to anyone. We hadn't talked about kids in over a year. I thought she wasn't ready. Turns out, she just wasn't ready with me. Marla continued, voice rising. You told me you needed money for medical tests. You said Daryl didn't know how to be supportive. I sent you $2,000. From my savings. Meredith didn't respond. Just stood there, blinking rapidly like she could force tears to come. But none did. I wanted to believe you, Marla said, quieter now, voice cracking. You've always been the star. The polished one. The one everyone compared me to. And now I find out the whole thing was a costume. You wore our family like armor while you fed your ego with lies. She dropped the folder on the table. You don't need a sister. You need a mirror. Then she turned to me, looked me right in the eye, and said, "You deserve better." And not in the pity way. I mean it. I didn't know what to say. I've spent most of this marriage thinking I was the problem. Too sensitive, too slow to bounce back, too needy. But in that moment, hearing those words from the one person Meredith never expected to turn on her, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Worth. Marla left without another word. Just a door slam that echoed down the hallway. And then it was just us, Meredith and I, standing in the ruins of everything she built with deception and charm and selective memory. She finally sat down, breathing heavy, rubbing her temples like she was the one who'd been wronged. "You planned this," she muttered. "You planned all of this." "I planned to protect myself," I said. "The rest? You handed to me." She looked up, eyes glassy. "Why didn't you just leave? Why go nuclear?" I shook my head. "Because if I left without proof, you would have rewritten the whole story. You'd tell people I was controlling. You'd cry at brunches about how I never supported your career. And everyone would believe you." Her lips parted, but no words came out. Because she knew it was true. I picked up my keys. "Where are you going?" she asked. "Not away," I said. "Not yet. But I am giving you time to decide how much more of your life you want to lose trying to protect a fantasy." And before I stepped out, I added, "Because this isn't about cheating anymore. It's about character. And you're running out of it." She didn't chase me, didn't scream, didn't throw anything. Just sat there, quiet, finally realizing that the man she used to talk over had found a voice loud enough to silence hers. 2 days passed. No calls, no texts, just silence. Not the angry kind, the kind people confuse with control. But I knew her too well. Meredith didn't go quiet because she accepted defeat. She went quiet because she was plotting. The moment I stepped away, she would have started spinning a version of events that didn't make her look like a selfish, deceitful fraud. And I was right. By day 3, I got a call, not from her, but from one of our joint clients. Apparently, Meredith had already started cleaning things up. She told him there was a miscommunication, that I had been under stress, and that any unauthorized audits I'd triggered were being walked back. She even implied I was taking a step back from the business due to mental health concerns. That last one almost made me laugh. She really thought she could paint me as the fragile one while she swept her embezzlement under a silk rug. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that the storm wasn't just coming from my end anymore. Because while she was busy telling our clients I was unstable, she made one mistake. She trusted someone else to help her manage the fallout. Her assistant, Kendall. Kendall was 24, quiet, ridiculously competent, and practically invisible in the office. Meredith treated her like a glorified scheduler, but I'd seen how often she stayed late, how often she covered for Meredith's meetings and emergencies. I never blamed her. She was just following orders. Until now. Because on that same afternoon Meredith tried to erase me from the business, Kendall called me. At first, I thought it was a misdial. But when I picked up, she didn't waste a second. "I think you should know," she said. She asked me to delete emails and wipe her shared drive. She said it was standard legal protocol, but it felt wrong. My heart skipped. "Did you do it?" "No," she replied. "I backed everything up and sent a copy to myself before she could touch it." I nearly dropped the phone. She continued, her voice fast, like she'd been holding this in. "I'm sorry I didn't come forward sooner. I was scared. She's persuasive. And she promised me a promotion once this all calmed down." I could hear the guilt in her tone. And for a moment, I didn't know what to say. This woman, someone Meredith treated like furniture, had just turned the key in a lock I didn't even know existed. She also had Wes sign something, Kendall added. An NDA. About their relationship. I blinked. She made him sign something? Yes. She said if anything came out, she'd drag him down with her. He didn't seem happy about it. That explained his panic in front of the building. She hadn't just used company funds for the affair. She tried to legally bind him to her narrative. She thought she was protecting herself. What she'd done was create the perfect paper trail of manipulation. I thanked Kendall, asked her if she'd be willing to submit a statement. She hesitated, then said yes. That was the moment I realized the entire web Meredith built was starting to collapse inward, not from my attacks, but from the weight of her own lies. The very people she used as pawns were walking away from the board. And then came the final twist. That evening, I got an email. No subject, no signature, just a forwarded PDF attachment and one sentence. You should see this before she does. It was a scanned legal notice, filed 2 hours earlier. Wes had hired a lawyer, and the letter included something else. A clause requesting financial protection from a potential lawsuit based on alleged misuse of company resources, personal coercion, and breach of contract. He wasn't just cutting her off. He was turning on her. Meredith hadn't just lost me. She'd lost her affair partner, her assistant, her sister, and now, possibly her own defense. She had spent years building a world where she could never be questioned. And now, even her lies had started to file paperwork. She showed up at my door just before 9 a.m. No warning, no text, no apology. Just a frantic knock, followed by her voice, thinner than I'd ever heard it, like all the air had been squeezed from her lungs. Daryl, please open the door. I didn't move at first, just stood in the hallway staring at it. She knocked again, this time harder. I just need 5 minutes. I swear. I opened the door halfway. She looked like a different woman, hair tied back in a rushed bun, sunglasses still on though it was cloudy, lips trembling even under a thick layer of whatever expensive gloss she still believed made her invincible. I messed up, she said quickly, before I could even speak. He's threatening me. My silence must have unnerved her because she kept going, words tumbling out too fast to breathe between them. He's suing me. Or trying to. He says I manipulated him, but I didn't. I mean, yes, okay, I was trying to protect the business, and maybe I pushed him to keep quiet, but I didn't force him. Stop, I said, holding up a hand. Did you read the document his lawyer sent? Her brows pinched together. No, I haven't even seen the whole thing yet. I just know it's bad, Kendall said. Of course she hadn't read it. That was Meredith in a nutshell. React first, deflect second, disappear third. But now, none of her strategies were working. I stepped back, letting her inside. She blinked, surprised, but walked in like she was still testing whether this was a trap. I handed her a printout of the document I received, Wes's legal notice. I had highlighted one part in yellow. She scanned it, paused, then her eyes widened. You've got to be joking, she whispered. Because right there, in the middle of the page, was a notarized statement from Wes claiming that Meredith had pressured him into falsifying vendor contracts, and worse, had misrepresented her authority over the company's finances. She had signed his name on 2 forms, both submitted to a shared business affiliate for a joint marketing deal. And one of those affiliates had filed their own internal report. But that wasn't even the part that wrecked her. Below that was an addendum, a line I had read 10 times just to be sure I wasn't hallucinating. The personal relationship between Ms. Weathers and myself began before her marriage was confirmed to be in crisis. She informed me that she was separated, and her husband had already moved out. Her lips parted slowly. That's a lie. I didn't say anything. Daryl, I never told him we were separated. I never said you moved out. I mean, look at you, you're still here. Apparently, I said flatly. That didn't fit the version of the story he wanted to sell. So he rewrote it. And there it was. Her own playbook, turned against her. Wes wasn't protecting her anymore. He wasn't even neutral. He was building a legal moat and tossing her into the deep end to drown alone. She sunk into the chair across from me, stunned. Her hands trembled slightly, her nails tapping the table in chaotic, uneven rhythms. I didn't think he'd. No, of course she didn't. She thought he loved her. She thought their little affair was real, that when the dust settled, Wes would still be there with his smug smile and fancy drinks and endless compliments about how brilliant she was. But the second it got inconvenient, he rewrote the story, made her the liar, the instigator, the manipulator. She thought he'd protect her. He barely waited 2 weeks to bury her. And I'll admit, part of me enjoyed watching her face as she realized it. Not because I wanted revenge, but because this was the only way she could understand what she'd done to me. I had begged for honesty, for dignity, for basic truth. She gave me fiction, and now fiction was swallowing her whole. She stood slowly, clutching the printout. I don't know what to do. I do, I said. She looked up, hopeful, like maybe I was about to offer a lifeline. I think, I continued, you need to start practicing how to say, I take full responsibility. She flinched, like I'd slapped her. Because that, I said, walking past her toward the kitchen, is what the judge will want to hear. She followed me in, voice rising. So that's it. You want to see me in court? You want to ruin me? No, I said. I just want the truth on the record. You did the rest to yourself. She didn't cry. Not because she wasn't hurting, but because people like Meredith don't cry in front of the people they lied to. They save tears for mirrors and locked bathrooms and boardrooms full of people who haven't read the emails yet. But I had. I'd read everything. And in 72 hours, so would the lawyers. Because there was one thing left she hadn't expected. The company we co-owned, the one she bled to fund her affair, it wasn't just mine and hers. There was a third name on that contract. And that person? They just made contact. I don't think she slept the night before the hearing. She looked hollow when she arrived, dressed in a beige suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, sunglasses on inside the courthouse, gripping a leather folder like it could somehow keep the lies from leaking out of her pores. I, on the other hand, sat calmly at the far end of the waiting area with a black coffee and 3 binders. One for me, one for my lawyer, one for the silent partner. Yes, that silent partner. The name Meredith had always overlooked on the incorporation papers, the person she'd forgotten about, ignored, and quietly pushed out of meetings once the company started making real money. His name was Adrian, my late friend from college. He was the one who helped me register the company. A brilliant mind, introverted, careful, deeply allergic to people like Meredith. He'd moved overseas 2 years ago but had always kept a minority stake, never cashed out, never interfered. Until now. Because when I told him everything, the stolen funds, the forged authorizations, the fake invoices, he didn't hesitate. He flew back, quietly, showed up the morning of the hearing with a messenger bag and a witness statement. Meredith didn't see him until the bailiff called our case. When she finally noticed him standing next to me at the bench, something cracked in her polished mask. She opened her mouth to speak, but the judge was already reading from the filings. The hearing wasn't about infidelity. It wasn't about the emotional fallout. It was about fraud, misuse of company resources, breach of fiduciary duty. And that's what made it worse for her. Because this time, it wasn't about emotions. It was about numbers. Cold, unforgiving, documented. The judge asked her to respond to Wes's notarized statement, to the trail of payments, to the NDAs, the invoice discrepancies. She said nothing. Then Adrian stepped forward. And in less than 2 minutes, he did what I hadn't been able to do in 8 years. He dismantled her carefully constructed narrative, piece by piece, and did it with spreadsheets, timestamps, and calm professionalism. Not anger, not vengeance, just facts. The judge ruled quickly. Meredith was to forfeit her stake in the business. She was ordered to repay a portion of the stolen funds, and pending further investigation, might face civil penalties if Wes's suit went forward. She didn't even fight it. She just stared at the table, her pen still in hand, never touching the paper in front of her. Afterward, I walked outside into the October sunlight, lighter than I'd felt in years. Adrian clapped a hand on my shoulder. You held it together, he said. I smiled. Barely. He handed me a manila envelope. This is yours now. I'm out. Take it somewhere better. I nodded. He left. I didn't go straight home. I walked. Past the courthouse. Past the coffee shop where Meredith once told me people only cheat when they're unhappy. Past the old apartment we shared before the company grew too big, and so did her ego. Eventually, I sat on a park bench and called my sister. Nora, I said when she picked up. She sounded surprised. Daryl, are you okay? I breathed in deeply, watching a few yellow leaves drift down in slow circles. Yeah, I said. I think I'm actually okay. For the first time in forever, I didn't feel like a ghost in my own life. I wasn't the man who waited in silence anymore. I had spoken. I had acted. I had won, not just legally, but emotionally. I didn't destroy her. She destroyed her own world. I just made sure there was a mirror when it happened. And me? I was walking out of the ashes holding a blueprint. Not for revenge, but for peace.